if he may deny it. Yes, we are, of course, talking about uThermal versus Lilbow, and without further ado, here we have it. Here on Lightshade LE, we're in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, spawning all the way in the bottom right-hand corner. We have the red Protoss player coming up from the land of France. He is, of course, going to be representing Team Alta. He is Lilbow.
And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Lightshade LE, we have the blue Terran player hailing from the land of the Netherlands, representing Team Liquid. It is uThermal.
Yeah, getting into it.
Some know him as uThermal.
Well, yeah, as uThermal, yeah. But yeah, getting into it a little bit here, we obviously have two very well-established players. uThermal, obviously one of the best European Terran players consistently throughout Legacy of the Void, has some of the most diverse range of builds out there. Personally, I'm a little grateful that he blesses us with his builds through YouTube guides, and on the other side of that, we have Lilbow, who has a bit of a storied journey, as you were mentioning a little bit earlier on. You were touching on it. He was straight up the Foreign Hope towards the end of Heart of Swarm. Then he switched to playing Overwatch a little bit, even coached a couple of Overwatch teams, but very recently has decided, you know what, I want to get back into StarCraft. And he has been making a lot of rounds. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but he was able to make it to the playoffs of last season of DreamHack Masters EU. He's a very naturally gifted player. We'll have to see how far that takes him this season.
Yeah, like Lilbow is one of those players who he in a way he kind of reminds me of some of the Korean players who went to the military, where like they have this like long history behind them. They achieved so much, and now after years they're back, you know, kind of like, I don't know, say Leenock, or even Hush, Puzzle, Tasia when he came back, Bomber when he came back,
more recently Hero and Classic, who have been making a lot of waves as well in online events.
Exactly, and it's like a lot of people are wondering, will this player ever reach the echelons that they once did in their prime? You know, there was a period where Lilbow was the best foreigner out there. Can he again at least try and meet that again? Does he want that as well? I guess is another question. You know, it's been many years since then. Is he craving that, or is he content with more of the middle of the pack? Yeah, I'm personally curious. I hope that like these are some questions that maybe the mainstream has asked Lilbow in the past when he's been on the mainstream.
How would you answer that though? It's like, well, yeah, everyone wants to win, don't they? But how badly, right? Oh, very neat trick with the KDA charge. uThermal is able to sneak his Reapers in. Should be able to get maybe 1 or 2 probes, depending. But most importantly, he is able to scout everything Lilbow's going for.
Yeah, exactly. He does. He is able to get in, gets 2 probe kills. Nicely done. And he confirms it is, of course, a Twilight Council opening. And, ooh, back at home, he's getting set up for a bit of a drop.
That he is. In the meantime, going to be utilizing that Widowmine a bit more defensively, actually. Okay, I thought it was only a single Widowmine for a sec, but yeah, he's going for the standard 2 Widowmine drop. Still taking this very seriously, very defensively. Not going for 3 mines, instead a much quicker tech lab on that factory. Cyclones and siege tanks are very useful in the defense, but he wants to prioritize a Raven to snipe a observer, I have to imagine. The Adept makes its way through!
The Adept does get all the way to the main base. He will delay this rack, see the entire production line, and even wreak more havoc here in the main. Meanwhile, at the same time, uThermal does sneak into the natural base, does land both, but we do see a reaction.
Yeah, it was just quick enough here for Lilbow. Doesn't lose as many probes as he perhaps could have. One more volley! Only 1 stalker attacked. But that medevac isn't going to be able to boost its way back in, right?
Just recall forehead. Oh god. Yeah, unfortunately, oh god, it's gonna be so difficult for that medevac to escape. I guess luckily, you know, the stalkers haven't positioned themselves behind the medevac as well to try and like trap him in place, so he can still escape and still get back home. Or if he was so bold, he could try and boost in and drop those widow mines again.
Yeah, definitely a very big risk, but that's why Lilbow probably isn't anticipating it. He is still staying safe and leaving a Stalker by that natural mineral line. Again, one attack from the Stalker is all it's really going to take to shut down this medevac.
It really is. Oh, well, boy. So uThermal has to be careful with that. Meanwhile, back at home, he's just ramping up here, getting his Raxus up and running. We, of course, have Stim on the way as well. And there's a lot of potential here with this. That Raven slowly gathering that energy. Sure, there are Colossus on the way, but, mate, that's just a disabled target.
Pretty much. Then it's a sitting duck, then it's wasted supply. Then it's a free target for the bio to sim on forward to.
Exactly. I guess we should also mention that we do have Lilbow transitioning into this Colossus tech. Unlike some of the other Protoss players that we've seen earlier today in Taiwan, Hong Kong, someone like Haas, for example, they prefer to try and go for this in like mass kind of quote-unquote Zerg-esque Protoss composition where they just make mass gateway units and overwhelm your opponent with Stalkers and with Zealots. But no, Lilbow is having none of that. He's being sensible. This is from Europe.
I don't know why.
Is that a shot at Europeans or is that a shot at the Taiwanese? I don't know.
Look, he hasn't been scarred by the NA server, right? Ironically, uThermal, doesn't play too much on the NA server either, but I feel like he is responsible, at least for the Terran players, with his build guides to traumatize a lot of other players on the ladder.
Yeah. Exactly. Speaking of, we do have a third base on the way for uThermal, but of course he did prioritize his production and his army first. So, a bit of a later third, but we do have a lot to work with here instead for uThermal, so he's going for a bit of a double drop here towards the southern edge of the map. We do have some nice spots, some nice spotters though for Lilbow. Like, mate, he's got probes all over the place, pylons as well. Impressive.
Who says you need to have observers sieged up?
Exactly, mate. Just use a probe instead. There is a bit of like a dead spot here for Lilbow, as in he won't have vision until it does come into the main base. So that is a little bit unfortunate. We're gonna have to wait and see if Lilbow's response time is gonna be fast enough. As charges on the way, 6 gateways are being thrown down, mate. Lilbow is getting ready to push out. Pure charged up Colossus.
Lilbow does not want to get a 4th base this game, and uThermal is looking to oblige, going for a multi-prong. Can't quite push into that. No, but now that he knows where the army is, he can drop.
Exactly, that was a beautiful scan. uThermal knows what's happening, so he needs to back off, he needs to siege up. The drop does go into the main base, and the gateways aren't done yet, and oh my god, they're all being depowered!
Well, that's gonna shut down Lilbow's push.
Oh my, this is actually huge. This needs to go back up and running. There we go, we have another pylon on the way, but the drop hasn't been dealt with. Like, uThermal can just deny more pylons.
Like so, basically 10 gateways that aren't gonna be powered for a while.
Look at this wall, mate. Oh my, it's beautiful.
It really is.
Wait, these gateways are never gonna be used.
Well,
Jesus Christ, another pylon's gonna get depowered. We have a force recall as well. Lilbow, his push was just completely neutered.
Yeah, he was still trying to get something done. It was still a very potent army, but once he saw that wall, realized nothing could be done. These are 10 gateways that are powered. 3 of them haven't even fully transitioned into gateways yet.
Jesus Christ, uThermal with the plays, again with the reads as well. Sure, he wasn't mining at the 3rd base, but again, he would have just straight up lost the 3rd. Like, it would have been so difficult to hold on there against all those Colossus. You could argue he probably could have, honestly, because he does have a Raven, so he can disable, and there was no reinforcing warp ins, so you could argue that he could have taken a risk, but he was just playing it safe, and no reason not to take a risk, right? No reason to take a risk.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten to that stage of the TVP, I suppose. That uThermal is. I'm not sure if I call him an advocate for taking risks in TVP, but he is kind of the one who says that sometimes you do have to take a risk.
Speaking of risk,
can't play perfectly.
Yeah, that medevac is still there, by the way.
It is.
He did drop off the Widow Mines, but the medevac itself is still chilling.
Yeah, I'm curious as to where that Widow Mine got dropped off and how that medevac is still able to stay alive.
I know, right? Just come back home. Come back. Oh god, meanwhile Lilbow is trying to position his army here. Unfortunately, he did have to wait longer because he had to remake that War Prism. Meanwhile, the tank is a little bit exposed. He's diving on top of it.
He disables, get thrown down. There's only one Colossus and it's being targeted by the Vikings. GG. uThermal takes game number 1.
Mate, that was a beautifully played game there by uThermal. Like, wow.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, as you were saying, it came down to the reads from him. His ability to, I guess not necessarily scout, but have vision on the map. That scan was absolutely huge.
Yeah,
it's one of those things for the Terran decision-making checklist, I suppose, that uThermal is part of the big contributors to that, right? Figure out where your opponent's army's at, and then decide what to do from there.
Yeah, it's like sure, scouting is a part of it, sure it is. But another part is just like his ability to process that information and come up with like the correct response or as best response as he can. And for him to go for that drop, for him to see the army move out, for him to set up defensively at his natural, give up on his third, like it was all beautifully done. And because of that, like that was kind of a one-sided game.
Decision making, man. Something that really can't be measured, but something that really can make all the difference when you have two pretty even players. I mean, I'm a little hesitant to call them both even. I'm not too sure what their form's looking like recently.
True.
But, you know, looking at their histories, again, they're just two very established names in the EU scene.
Yeah. I'm in awe. Like, I'm not even a Zerg player, and I look at that and I'm like, oh my god, that was just so well done.
But you are a Zerg player.
sorry, I should say I'm a Zerg player. I'm not even a Terran. And I was just so impressed with how uThermal played that out. We'll see if he can repeat that, or we'll see if Lilbow can just kind of shake that off a little bit, you know, and dive into game 2, and maybe we can see an ace match.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be the hope here.
Fingers crossed.
I always consider it a treat when I get to see uThermal use every build that he either came up with or adapted from somebody else or discovered, I suppose.
No bias here, by the way.
Well, good from Lilbow, you know.
Yeah, true.
It's somebody who doesn't really deserve to be O2'd, I suppose, if you want to put it that way. Regardless, we are going to be continuing our series here on Oxide LE. We're in the bottom left-hand corner map, starting all the way in the bottom left-hand corner. The red Protoss player coming out from the land of France. He is going to be representing Team Alta, getting a little bit of Viking in there. He is, of course, Lilbow.
Spawning in the top right-hand corner of Oxide LE, we have the blue Terran player hailing from the land of the Netherlands, representing Team Liquid, and currently up 1-0. It is uThermal.
He's had a very crackpot conspiracy theory that may not be particularly relevant here.
What
so,
theory?
I don't remember which language, but there is a language out there where bow basically translates to dog or something like that. So in a way, Lilbow, it could translate to puppy.
Oh, good.
As we saw, there was a Taiwanese player called something like that. It was Small Gao, something like that, and Cow was dog in Cantonese. So
yeah.
In a way, his name translated to puppy.
I mean, like it's a bit of an old meme, but the reason why I call him Lilbow, his name is Lilbow, by the way, is because back in the day, like that's I don't know, it was like a fun thing amongst the casters. No, it was intentional. They would call him Lil Bow Wow.
Exactly.
You know, like a rapper or something, you know. But yeah, I don't know. It just flows off the tongue a little bit.
It really does. Like Lilbow, it's alright, but Lilbow.
There's a little bit more pizzazz.
I don't know what it is, yeah.
It's a little bit more bombastic, you know?
That's a fantastic word.
God, what was the other word? Oh god, I don't recall. Wonky, that's it.
Well,
Wonky.
I mean, that's kind of the opposite of bombastic, but
I know,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a great word.
Meanwhile, we are getting into game number 2 here. So far, nothing too crazy going on. We have the Reaper just dancing around the Adept. Oh my god, look how much damage has been dealt to the Adept. Oh my god.
All the shields basically being taken out. He cancels that shade? So the Adept isn't able to jump on top of that Reaper.
What?
uThermal. Really
Jesus.
mastering the Macarena.
I just
some kind of other dance. I don't know.
Yeah,
Salsa, question mark.
Regardless, the dance from uThermal was insane. The Adept just can't touch him. Finally, I think a shot will go off from the Stalker, but at least the Adept stood no chance.
A lot of pressure here. Now, obviously no major damage has been dealt, but Lilbow has had his concentration taxed a little bit. He's still getting most of his buildings on time, but he's a little bit shaken, to say the least. uThermal, meanwhile, behind all of this, doing standard Terran things, going for his 1-1-1, not going for a mine drop this time.
Exactly, switching things up here, going for that Tech Lab instead. Could be looking to go into Cloak Banshees. But yeah, I just love what was happening, because it's not like any damage was really done. It was just like style points, you know? Like, he wasn't getting any probe kills or anything like that. He was just, again, just playing with his opponent a little bit. Meanwhile, the Hellion slips in, and yo, this time actually probes are going down. Oh my god.
Probes are going down, the Hellion gets a full scout, confirms once again it is going to be a Twilight Council opening. Lilbow going for that Blink Stalker opening, again, very versatile, can be aggressive or defensive with it.
Yeah. And with this, I mean, uThermal, he's going to be, again, aware of what's going to be coming out here. Once again, just like the previous game, we see I guess, a transition or a prioritization of a robotics base. So we're going to be rushing into Colossus here from the side of Lilbow. But yeah, will he be able to deal with these Banshees?
Is it wrong that I kind of want a return of Thor Banshee? Now that I see the Banshees being produced by uThermal.
You see a return, mate. We saw it in the Latin America qualifiers, man.
I suppose it never really left, yeah.
It was TVZ, though. It was TVZ. It wasn't TVP.
True.
But we'll see what we get here. I can't imagine we will. You know, I imagine uThermal wants to win this game. But, you know, he wants to have fun while doing it, right?
I suppose, yeah. And he is getting a couple more Raxes, so definitely going bio this time. I suppose it is a bit more difficult to pull off mech in a TVP, depending on the style.
Not impossible, but difficult.
Yeah. Ooh, no shield batteries here.
Oh my god.
One Banshee can two-shot the probes.
Exactly, and he's getting them. Meanwhile, there's no detection, so even though there's an army, it doesn't even matter. We have a forced recall here on the Observer. Observer, go! He finally does respond, but he's losing so many probes.
And uThermal dips out of there just as things are getting heated. He's gonna be able to keep this Banshee alive. He's gonna liaison with the second Banshee. It's not really gonna matter if shield batteries go down. Again, the Observer is so slow. That cannon only just got thrown down.
Exactly. He's relying on the cannon as well. He didn't respond with the Observer. I guess thankfully it is here in position for the second Banshee. But 11 probe kills on top of the probes that were killed earlier by the Hellion. Jesus Christ.
Lilbow now on about even workers, and that's not exactly where you want to be at in a PvT. When your opponent has mules, and when your opponent is looking to push out as soon as Stim finishes up.
Exactly, and at this point, I mean, thankfully there are now cannons up and running here, so it's going to be a little bit difficult. The Nash was exposed once again, by the way. So I'm still really concerned that we haven't seen the last of these Banshees. That they didn't take any damage at all, mate.
Yeah, they could come in and support the main army of uThermal, maybe target down the Colossus if he so desires, or even just go for a bit of a multi-prong. Even if uThermal is forced to retreat, if he can't get that third base of his push, he should at least still be able to get some damage done with the Banshee.
And unfortunately,
right.
Yeah, unfortunately that Observer was a little bit out of position, but uThermal doesn't go for it. He doesn't go for the mineral line. Meanwhile, there is another Observer here in position. So far, these Banshees haven't been able to dive in again, but they just have to wait. They just have to wait for a moment where Lilbow's a little bit too distracted. And, mate, just dive in.
They might even be able to cause a distraction themselves.
It's very true. Very true indeed. As a couple more probes go down. Oh, God.
Yeah, uThermal dodging around this cannon. Can't overstay his welcome by the third base. Will lose Banshee if he does so, but since there is no shield battery, again, there's nothing to really keep those probes alive against a single Banshee as the auto turrets get thrown down. uThermal. He just doesn't stop coming if
Are we allowed to stream this? He dives back in. Like, probes just keep dying. How many probes have died this game? 26! Look at the units lost, Yaku. Look at it. It's disgusting. And what has Lilbow done with his time here? He's got one Colossus. He hasn't really been able to build on top of that because he just keeps losing workers. His economy is just not happening.
I want to point out real quick, uThermal has killed 26 probes without a single mine drop.
Yeah.
And now Stim has finished up. Exactly. +1 is about to finish up too. uThermal not quite going for the push yet. He's making sure that his third base is up and running. uThermal being surprisingly more passive this game. I feel like he can totally go across the map right now and end it.
This is true. Like he's like it's like death by 1,000 cuts. You know, he's just slowly chipping away at Lilbow until Lilbow just leaves. It's oh my god.
Yeah. Well, relatively, I suppose, because I normally expect. I mean, TVP in general, you normally expect a big timing coming out from the Terran player, right? Especially from somebody like uThermal. But as you were saying, he's just focusing a lot more on the harass. He's kind of trying to bully Lilbow into submission. Now he has a much larger army, though. He's more than confident enough to go for the push and have the Banshees harass and have 3 medevacs go straight into the main base.
Yeah, I'm really concerned for Lilbow here. He's down 40+ army supply. The tank siege up. These Ravens are ready to disable the one Colossus that's a part of this. Doesn't even go for it. Goes for the anti-armor. It gets almost the entire army.
Pretty much. That Colossus has a lot of range on it, so at least Lilbow does have that advantage. uThermal has to be a little bit careful, but the drop comes to the main base. GG is called. uThermal takes that series 2